Good morning, welcome to Furry and Spoilt. Today I'm going to talk to you about how to stop a dog barking. I think if you've got a dog that loves barking, I think it's one of the hardest behaviour problems to sort out. And when you think about all the problems that I have had to deal with, all the dogs I've rescued, all the different behaviour issues I've had to deal with, to say that barking is one of the hardest is quite something, but it really is. And if you don't have the problem of a dog that just loves barking, you really might not understand why I would say that. But if you've got a dog that loves barking and he loves barking more than he loves pleasing you, it really can be a problem. So I'm going to go through what things I've done that haven't worked and things I've done that have worked really well. Right, so in case you're not familiar with my channel, I've got 3 dogs, all shapes and sizes, all different issues, all backgrounds. So Harry here, he absolutely loves barking and he always has done. And to the point where he loves barking more than he loves pleasing me. And so over the years, it really has caused some problems. But I've always managed to get on top of it. So it was barking in the car, then he just loves barking. And because he's got Basset Hound in him, he's deep chested, and so his bark is really loud. Much louder than you looking at him there. His bark is much louder than you would expect it to be. On the whole, I've managed to keep on top of it. Everything's fine. It's nice and calm. He doesn't bark. It's fine. But every now and again, something will happen where it flares up again. And we're just dealing with one of those situations now. We have, just so you know, he's 6 years old. So it's not just a puppy young behaviour. It's just being a naughty dog behaviour. So we have just got some new next door neighbours. And they've got a little 3-year-old boy. And so he, playing in the garden. You know what they're like when they shriek and they laugh and all of that. He's just playing in the garden. He's not doing anything wrong. I do not have a problem with any of my boys. All of my dogs are boys. I do not have a problem with any of my boys barking to let me know that somebody is near our garden or near our house. Just a normal bark, just to let me know. I don't have any problem with that. And then I say, thank you. That's enough, and then they stop. No problem with that. In fact, I like it. It's a good security thing. I like it. But what Harry does is he throws his head back and lunges and barks at the top of his voice. It's so loud that it makes me jump out of my skin, and my other dogs as well. I've seen them physically jump, like out of their skin, jump. It's so loud. And because he sort of throws himself at whatever it is, it sounds very threatening because it sounds like it's coming at you. And it's completely, it's completely and utterly not acceptable. And for the little boy next door and his mum, it must sound terrifying because he sounds so much bigger than he is. And he doesn't touch the fence, but he lunges at the fence. And he's chucked his head back and this really loud bark. And the worst thing is well, that's bad enough. But the worst thing is he doesn't stop when I tell him to stop. And that's a big problem for me. If I say stop, he's not listening. Big problem. So that's what's been happening these last few weeks. A big problem. I have to get on top of it. So I'm now going to show you what I've done that didn't work. And then I'll show you what I've done that has worked. Right, so welcome to my kitchen. What I was doing that didn't work. Sometimes Harry would run out into the garden and do that. Sometimes the back door would be shut and he'd just hear the child and he would do it at the back door. So what I would do is say right, and I would use the command out. I don't use the command out for anything else, and so I use it for this. And I would point and I'd tell him to get out. Very firm. And I was telling him to go into my hallway. Please excuse the great big parcel that's in the way. So this is my hallway. And so I was telling him to go into the hallway. Now, I don't use doors in this area of my house. I use stair gates because with 3 dogs, I need to be able to shut gates so they, when I answer the door and stuff. And so what I was doing was shutting the stair gate and putting Harry out in the hallway while we were all staying in the kitchen. So the theory behind that is that they're a pack animal and the dogs don't like to be separated from their pack. So I would separate him from the pack because his behaviour isn't acceptable, and if he wants to be part of this pack, then he's going to follow by the rules. And because he's not, he will be separated from the pack. So I was putting him in the hallway. If I was in the sitting room, which goes off this hallway, I would do the same thing. I would put him out into the hallway. I would shut the gate, leave him there for 5 minutes. That didn't work. And that is because he could see us. There was no real, so what, big deal. You know, you put me in the hallway, big deal. I could still see you. I didn't suffer, nothing. Well, I wouldn't ever make him suffer, but you know what I mean? It was no big deal to him. So it didn't make any difference. He'd come out and he'd just go and do it again. He didn't care. So then I thought, right, okay, I think it's because he could see us and he could see us through this gate. So we've got a door here, but we just don't use it because we've got the gates. If I didn't have the gates, I think it would have been more effective if I could have shut this door, because then he wouldn't have been able to see us. So what I did do, and it's worked, as far as I'm aware, we've had a good few days now with no barking. What I did was I put him out in the hallway, and then I took him round here, and here we have the sitting room, and we've got another gate, and I would put him into the sitting room and shut this gate. So there's still no doors being shut, but the point is he couldn't see us because we were there in the kitchen and he is now there in the sitting room, and it's just enough because it's gone round the corner. He couldn't see us, and that was the thing. He couldn't see us, and that upset him. And I could tell because he suddenly did like little whimpers, like, oh no, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. Whereas when he was just in the hallway, he had sort of a cocky so what attitude. But when I put him in the sitting room, it was there was little whimpers, and he was like, I didn't look at him, I didn't go and talk to him, nothing. And the other thing was, I wasn't leaving him for long enough when I put him into the hallway. So I put him in the sitting room, and I left him in there for half an hour. And that did have a good effect. It did. And the reason I could tell was because when my husband came home from work, normally he barks at that situation. Not badly, but more than I would perhaps like. And he didn't bark at all. And he just lay on the floor with his nose between the bars, ever so sort of like quietly whimpering. And he didn't move when my husband came through the front door. So I knew that I had made an effect. However, it wasn't quite enough. He still, the next morning, barked at the little boy really badly. So I thought, okay, I was a bit out of my wit's end now. I thought, I don't know what else to do. I've put him 2 rooms away. I left him there for half an hour. I don't know what else to do. So when the next morning came and he barked again, I put him in here. So I did the same thing. We were in the kitchen. He barked really badly, very loudly, made us all jump out of our skin. So I did the same thing, and I brought him through the hallway and put him in here. Now, this was the bit that has broken him. At the time, just pure coincidence, at the time, it was time for them to have their salmon. So every morning, I have to say that word quietly because they know it. Every morning, I give them a spoonful of tinned salmon each, and they get it because it moisturises their skin. And they get it every morning, and they love it. And it happened to happen that when he was in the sitting room, it was time for them to have it. And so I sort of hesitated for a minute, and then I thought, no, it feels harsh, and I've never done anything this harsh to him, but I'm not going to let him have his. It's not part of his meal plan, so it wasn't. I would never do it. If it had been, I'll talk to you in a minute about if it had been food. I would never have done it if that had been a feeding time, but I will talk to you about that in a minute. But because it was just like a supplement, just a little spoon of salmon, I decided I wasn't going to give it to him. And he could hear that I'd got the little dishes out, and he knew exactly what was happening. And he did give like quite a demanding bark, and I ignored him, and I gave these 2 boys here, who are no barking issues with these 2 at all. They're wonderful. I gave them their salmon, and Harry, he made no noise. You could tell he was like really like put out by it. So I did that, and then I carried on doing a few jobs in the kitchen, and then I always at that point in the morning bring them through. They've had their walk and everything. I bring them through into here, and they all just settle down like this and have a sleep. So I carried on with that in a normal routine that I always do. And Harry ran straight past me into the kitchen. He thought his salmon would be out there on the floor waiting, and it wasn't. And then the rest of the day, I ignored him. Not, well, yeah, I mean, I just basically didn't look at him. I didn't look at him. I didn't interact with him. And I just ignored him for the rest of the day. And not in a harsh way, but, I still knew that he was okay. He was still with us. He was still with his pack, but I just wasn't interacting with him. And he has not barked once since. Not a peep out of him. The little child has been out in the back garden screeching and laughing. Not so much as a peep out of him. And I'm convinced it's because I went that step further and took away something that he valued. And there's not been a peep out of him. So that is what it took. It took that. So what I would have done is, so a couple of things I want to mention. So first of all, this is important. If that had happened and so in total, he was probably left in here for about half an hour. And then, the salmon thing just happened to happen with that. If it had been his meal time, there was no way I would have not given it to him. Absolutely no way. But I would have given it to him in here. So I would have brought his meal and put it in here with him. So he would have still eaten, but he would have been separated from the pack. If that situation had happened again, and it isn't time to give salmon, so there's nothing for him to really miss out on, what I would have done is, so I've got a treat jar, and so what I would have done is I would have put him in here the same, and then the treat jar, I would have really made it like noisy, so there was no question in his mind that I was opening the treat jar and that I was giving those two some treats and he was missing out on something. Because it's the missing out on something that he needed for him to think, he needed to value that more than he did the barking. Because if me just putting him in here for half an hour, that's no big deal to him. What, he can just get on the lovely sofa, have a lovely sleep. What's the big deal? He didn't really care. And he's not a dog that's massively attached to his pack, so he didn't care. Separate me from the pack, I don't care. He really has that sort of attitude. But you take away his salmon, and that bothered him. That really bothered him. And so if you are doing this, you don't have a salmon thing and it doesn't come, nothing naturally that he wants to do would happen in that time period, then I would get you whatever your treats is, your jar, your packet, whatever your treats is, or whatever a treat is to your dog, I would do that thing and make sure that he can hear that you're doing that thing. If I had a house where, so I couldn't go into the hallway, so I can basically move 2 rooms away, so he can't see us. But if you've got a house where you don't have that, so just one room goes to the other room, and you close the door, it won't work if you just got a stair gate because he can just see you, so what? But if you did it and you close the door, the fact that he can't see you, that way may well be enough. Or you might find that it's not enough. And if that isn't enough, if his pack is still too close to him, then I would go either out in the garden or upstairs, or even if I had to go out the front door, I would go further away so he was away from the pack. Now remember, your pack could be anything. So for me, my pack is me and my 3 dogs. If my husband's at home, it's my husband, me and my 3 dogs. But for you, it might just be you and your dog. It might be you, your dog and your cat. It might be you, your children and your dog. Whatever it is, he sees them as the pack and he needs to be separated from the whole of his pack. The other thing is, my other 2 dogs here, they wouldn't, if I so much as put them behind a stair gate and shut it, they would be very upset about that. And they would never ever do whatever it was I asked them to do. They would never ever do it. But the difference is with these 2 at the back is if I asked them to stop doing something, they would stop doing it. I don't get any problem with these 2. They do whatever I ask them to do. Really, really easy. They just want to please and have an easy life. Whereas Harry, he's just not bothered about pleasing me. He just isn't bothered about it. He'll do it if it suits him. He's a really difficult dog. He's a really lovely dog, but he's a really difficult dog. And so you might find that your dog just is like, no, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, please, I don't mean to. And you're never going to have an issue with it. But if you've got a dog that's headstrong and will fight you on it, that's what I would suggest you do. The other thing that I thought about this week was, so I'm massively into pack leadership. I completely believe dogs live by a pack, and that pack has to have a pack leader without question. And if it doesn't have a strong pack leader, somebody in the pack will step up to do it, and it might not be the person, the dog that really wants to do the job. I've done a whole video on this. I'll connect it at the at the end, that video that comes up. I'll put it in there for you. I really believe that if you don't understand the pack hierarchy and pack leadership, your dogs can't, unless you've got an incredibly laid back dog. I think life's just so much easier if you understand how the pack works. So I talk about that in that video I did. And so what I thought about this week was, have I slipped as a pack leader at all? Is he showing me less respect because I've slipped? Now, to the eagle-eyed of you, you will be saying, well, you've got your dogs on the sofa, you shouldn't be doing that. And the rules that I live by with pack leadership is, if I've got a powerful breed or a giant powerful breed, and I've had them in the past, I would never let them on the sofa. They would not be allowed upstairs. Rules were much stricter. But because these boys are really friendly, they're all really, really friendly, I have no problem of letting them on the sofas and they're allowed upstairs, because there's just no issue there. They're really, really friendly. Everything's just really fine. And even though my dogs in the past have all been really friendly, they were big, powerful breeds, and I just think for them, you need to really be firm on your pack leadership. So, with that being said, my first thought was, should I put Harry off the sofa? He's not allowed to go on the sofa. And I haven't done that, and that hasn't been needed. If he had continued to ignore me, that would have been my next step. I wouldn't have let him on the sofa, and I wouldn't have let him upstairs. But as it happens, he's listened to me. It all seems to be fine. He's got his message loud and clear. He's not going to risk missing out on Salmon again. And so we haven't got any problems at all. But I did just have a think, is there anything I could perhaps sharpen up a bit on pack leadership? But as it is, he's listened to me, and so everything's fine. So we'll hope, I held off recording this video because I wanted to make sure that it had actually worked. And I'm sure it has, because he hasn't done anything. And, it was at the point where, even if we were in the house and the little child, even if you heard him scream, like, you could sometimes hear him, like, when I say scream, it's not screaming. You know what children are like. They yell, they're high pitched, you know what I mean, when they're happy and that. If you heard him through the wall, he would do it. And it was really big, this great big bark would all jump out of our skin. And, it was all the time. It was happening over and over again. It was really bad. And so now we've gone a week with nothing. And the little child's been... On Saturday, the little boy had a little girl come round to play, and they were both running around. It's a beautiful day. They were both running around, screeching at the top of their voices. And I was thinking, yes, this is perfect. Absolutely perfect, because let's see whether or not he's going to do it. And a couple of times he looked at them and then he turned around to look at me, and I was like, yeah, try it. And he didn't even, nothing at all. So I'm pretty sure that it's worked. Until the next thing. I mean, this is the thing, because he loves barking so much. Like every year or so I get an incident where there's something that he's barking at and I need to sort it out. So that's this incident sorted out. So as always, you know where I am: Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. Twitter is where I kind of post just pictures of us during our day. I'm more chatty over there. Instagram and TikTok, I do dog tip of the day. So I just give little tips of whatever I'm doing and dog tips that I think might help people. And that's on TikTok and Instagram. Everything is under Furry and Spoilt. As always, put your comments in here. Tell me about your dogs. I love hearing about your dogs, and don't be scared to ask me any questions. I'm more than happy to help. So thank you very much for watching. Have a lovely day. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.